Hello everyone, my name is Emily Jones and I lead the Warren Averett Technology Group. Today we are going to dive into a crucial topic of IT assessments and how they can help to safeguard your business. I am joined by Scott Vance, Director of Consulting and Compliance with our group, and Randall Bunn, the Director of Technical and Security Services with our group. And they are here to answer some questions for us today. You know, we all know that businesses, regardless of their size or their type, depend on technology. However, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of their technical environment can be so challenging. So Scott, what is the most effective way for businesses to begin to even have a clear picture of what their information technology and data security looks like?
That's a great question. I think that the foundation of the security program should start with a security assessment. If you don't know where you stand, how can you fix what you have wrong or make any improvements to what you might have right? It gives you the picture of everything that's going on in your network and whether you're doing an effective job.
So in reality, the business owner would get a good overview of really what needs to be hardened possibly in their environment, or if they're getting an A+ or a C- or
Absolutely.
way on down there. I guess my next question, and Randall, I will take this one to you. Would you mind elaborating, because I hear from time to time all of these different types of assessments. So can you elaborate on what they are and what's the importance of each one?
Sure, be glad to. So one of the first ones we look at is a general cybersecurity assessment. What that does, like Scott was alluding to earlier, is it provides a really comprehensive look at your overall security so you can get an understanding of where you're coming from. It's hard to say I want to be secure if you don't even know where you currently stand on your security. You know, the next one I would say is more of a targeted assessment, a targeted technical assessment, if you will. So getting the security assessment, the general cybersecurity is one thing, but doing that targeted, you're looking at specific areas of technology such as Azure Active Directory, or just an Active Directory, or hey, I want to do an assessment of my firewall to make sure that my firewall rules are specific, or hey, related to possible some email issues, is my email set up correctly? So those are more targeted assessments. And so what that gap analysis does is it does an assessment of where you align with industry regulations and compliance to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. So if you have HIPAA, or have you done everything from a technology perspective and compliance and security perspective that you're supposed to done? You know, you say you're doing A, B, and C. Does A, B, and C really match what the compliance says in that regard? You know, so there's HIPAA, GDPR, PCI.
Yeah, that PCI one's a big one right now, because that's dealing with credit card processing, and there's a lot of companies that take credit cards and process those, and it's not just the processing industry. So it would be a gap analysis that one of those would need. Well, thank you for explaining that, because you know, we all hear assessment and we just put it all into one bucket, and when really and truly it's not. It's about so many things. So a business, the way that I understand that is, a business would choose the type of assessment based on their specific needs or priorities. In other words, you know, somebody might not need a gap analysis if they're not under some type of regulation. They could go with a regular cybersecurity, an in-depth one in that area. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and they kind of play together though. I mean, a cybersecurity assessment is focused on security of the network. A technical assessment is focused on how the network is configured. So a weakness in cybersecurity, if you were to have an incident, then comes back to rely on the technical assessment as to what can they do after you've been breached.
Yeah.
So if they're both not configured correctly, you didn't stop them from getting in, but once they got in, now they can spread out all through your network instead of being contained, or whatever technical piece should have been in place.
Okay. Let's talk about another important choice that clients or prospects or any business really needs to make. I've heard this about an internal versus an external when we talk about assessment. So Scott, what really is the difference there?
Okay. An internal assessment would be basically you have your own people assessing yourself. It's like a self-assessment. Those are invaluable to know where you're at on a quarterly basis or monthly basis or whatever you're doing them. But there's always a third-party assessment, basically to assess your assessor to make sure that they haven't missed something, because people get in a job and they know that job like the back of their hand, but industry's changing, AI's coming, all this stuff's coming, things happen they don't know about. The third-party assessment will point those things out because that third-party assessor will be assessing other companies with the current technology and current processes.
So it's in a sense having an external party check really over the other. So what should businesses look for when you talked about having that security or IT assessor, Scott?
They're going to want somebody who has a track record doing them. So the most important factor is not certification. Certifications are good, CISSP, something like that of that nature. What you need is somebody to prove that they've done them before and that they have experience in the industry. You can't take a person that has no experience and expect them to look over your cybersecurity program for things they just don't have experience doing.
That's a true statement.
The more experience, the better in cyber, and technical is pretty much the same way. It's if you don't know how stuff should be configured without the proper experience, how can you assess is it done right?
That's a really good point. And it goes to just show that, people think that people that are in technology are great at every aspect of technology, but that's not the case. And that's one of the reasons our team has your two teams that help bridge all of those pieces together, because most organizations don't have that level of expertise in there. So, Randall, how long does it typically take to have an assessment done, and does it disrupt the company when they have them done?
That's a great question. I would say it really depends on the type of assessment they're doing and the scope of that assessment. We're typically seeing really a few weeks for most of those to take place. As far as disrupting the company, we do our best to minimize any impact on the company. Part of companies, they make money by being able to work every day, so we don't really want to interrupt that ability. But there are conversations and activities that have to take place, but we do our best to schedule those and work with the company so that we cause the least amount of disruption. To date, we hadn't really had any disruption to a client's business, and we've done hundreds of different assessments.
That's really good news right there. So Scott, you mentioned a minute ago about the importance of the third-party assessment. What really should a business expect from a third-party assessment?
That's a great question. A third-party assessor, you should look for people who do things privately. They shouldn't be sending you lists of your users or anything crazy in email. They shouldn't ask for you to send it in email because that's sensitive information. They should give you a thorough report identifying vulnerabilities in your network, vulnerabilities in your software, and give you a prioritized list of what to fix first. What's the most bang for your buck, for your money? I mean, businesses don't have enough money to fix everything. So they can only fix the most highest priority items. And you may find out that some of the high priority items actually streamline some of your business processes and save you money. So the assessment itself may be paid for by you saving money doing something else that you were doing that wasn't quite as efficient as it could have been.
That's very interesting. So, a business owner would come out with a report. I would have a report that says, okay, here's what the findings were, and then it's prioritized for me to try to go through that. So, Randall, when we talk about that report and what comes out of that, how are the results of the assessment delivered to the business?
Sure. So typically when we deliver the report, we set up a meeting with the business owners or the managers, executives of the organization, and we deliver a formal report really to them. And in that report, we have the detailed finding and recommendations based on what we discovered during the assessment. every once in a while you run across some executives that don't want to get into all the details. You know, the C-level suite, they want, hey, tell me the high-level overview.
The cliff notes.
That's right, the cliff notes. You know, so what we do is we create an executive report for them, and then the more detailed notes we have for, you know, the internal or external IT personnel that they may have, so that they can discuss and really get into the nitty-gritty, while the C-level is getting kind of the higher overview. And then we present the findings that way with them.
Good deal. As a business owner, is this a one and done? I have me an assessment done. I've chosen one of the proper assessments for my business type, and I've had my assessment, and I've started going down my path of top priorities and taking care of those. Do I ever need an assessment again?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you need more assessments. Part of the reason is that technology changes. You know, how technology is utilized changes. The threat landscape is constantly changing. You know, what was a threat 10 years ago may not be such a threat today, and we're going to be facing threats, you know, tomorrow that we've never heard of. As technology, you know, morphs and changes, especially with the emergence of AI. You know, conversely, we're using AI to combat some of these threats, so it's kind of interesting using fire against fire. But yeah, there needs to be at least I would say a yearly assessment. In fact, we have several people we work with who do have yearly assessment requirements from their own vendors or even from their insurance, their cyber insurance.
Okay, that leads me to another question. Scott, on the cyber insurance, we all know that has changed. I mean, but not just in premiums and things that are going on. I mean, you know, 10 years ago, nobody had cyber insurance. You didn't even think about it. But now, cyber insurance is something that every business needs. But we're seeing some changes in that area, are we not?
We are. It was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, not so much, but 5, 7. That cyber insurance was a fad or something that they weren't even really checking. They'd send you this 5-question questionnaire. Who are you? Here's your insurance. So since COVID hit, everybody went to the house and all these attacks started happening because everybody got bored at home, I guess. The cyber insurance company started paying out a bunch of money because everybody was getting breached. So now the questions, every time we get a new question from a new customer, they've added more questions to it. MFA questions, multi-factor. They're asking all the most prevalent attacks, whether you're doing phishing training, whether you're doing this other stuff, and they will not pay the insurance. And now that you're saying that, Emily, one of the big factors we have in that is that they have people answering the insurance questionnaires that are not IT experts, and they're just kind of signing them and saying, here you go.
And I would add to that too, now we're also seeing, in addition to the questions, now they're wanting proof, they're wanting artifacts.
Yep.
You tell me you have MFA turned on, provide me artifacts that you actually have this enabled and turned on.
So that leads me to one more question. Those artifacts, those things that they're looking for, does an IT assessment provide that? And are we seeing cyber insurance companies making sure that they're insured are having assessments done, proper assessments?
During the cyber assessment, it's a pretty high level. We're not going to the deep, give me the user ID list, show me, prove to me multi-factors turned on all those. That would be more when you start getting into sort of compliance type stuff, where you're actually gathering artifacts so you can prove it to an assessor. This is just cyber insurance is a mini compliance. It's really what it is.
So more the gap analysis.
Yeah, it's a gap analysis type deal, but when they're doing it that way, they're the assessor, and they're asking for the artifacts now.
Well, this has been very interesting.
I was going to say we would see that more of the targeted approach.
Sure.
So if we did a targeted approach, hey, I need you to go make sure my Microsoft 365 is set up to this level of security, then at that point with that targeted, we would be able to go in and get all the details and the nitty gritty of the Microsoft 365, who has it, who doesn't, when the last time it was used, all the things needed for that at that point with the targeted.
Well, that's good to know, absolutely good to know. Thank you both for sharing your expertise. Clearly, IT assessments are a vital tool for helping us to understand and businesses to understand and be able to protect themselves and their businesses better and strengthen their cybersecurity footprint. You don't know what you don't know is a favorite saying of mine, and in this case, you really don't know what you don't know until you've had a great assessment done. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Don't forget to subscribe and click that little notification bell so that you'll never miss another video from us.